So let's start again. Hello, everyone. So yeah, so finally back again, and yeah, I was checking, you know, the 6th chapter. We are talking about it since 1 year. Of course, it's quite a lengthy chapter, and yeah, I was not, maybe on average, I was not doing 2 sessions per month, but still, I thought. For the future, we could do it a little bit different, that in the announcement, there will be already written which verses to be covered. And then maybe you read these verses and you use whatever commentary you like. And then, yeah, and then we will go through the verses. Like I tried that today, I will just read like 10 verses and then, yeah, explain them, and then we discuss, and then I read the next verses, and then I explain them, and then we discuss. But I think if you guys are prepared by reading whatever commentary you like, we can, yeah, we have more time for discussion. And Danielle is giving a virtual thumbs up. And by that also, especially I thought the 9th chapter, I did it once, like really like line by line, and that takes ages, and sometimes it's so detailed, and it's so, and one is a little bit getting lost in the details. And if you want to have details, yes, you have your commentaries in form of a book, but maybe especially for the 9th chapter, but also the other chapters, I think it's good to get the general idea and the general way of thinking and the direction of, yeah, Shantideva's wisdom, you know, and the, I don't know, in German we say like a red thread, you know, that is going through the Bodhicaryavatara. Yeah, so therefore I was counting I think so far chapter 6 we always covered like 6 or 7 verses, and today I think we have the aim of 26. So let's see how that works. They are not especially difficult anyway. So, okay, so I will just maybe give a bigger background where we are for those who maybe are joining for the first time or the last time. So the idea is, yes, we want to attain Buddhahood in order to be more helpful and beneficial for sentient beings. So their benefit, their enlightenment is our aim. And for that, our Buddhahood is the tool. And we become a Buddha by training as a Bodhisattva. And that is what the book is for. If we look into Mahayana, we have or Madhyamika Mahayana, we have like the view, which are the 2 truths, relative and absolute truth, how things appear and how things are. So that is the view or the ground of everything that will be explained in the 9th chapter. And then we have the practice, which are the 2 accumulations. So on the relative level, we accumulate merit, for example, by practicing patience, chapter number 6. And the other accumulation on the absolute level is accumulation of wisdom. And by that, yeah, we attain the true kayas. Thanks to the merit, we manifest the rupa kaya, like Sambhogakaya kaya and Nirmana kaya, for the sake of all sentient beings. And thanks to the wisdom, we realize the dhamma kaya, which liberates ourselves. So that is like the bigger context. And so within that, we are on the path level, we are on the 2 accumulation level, which, yeah, as I said, is merit and wisdom. And the merit side is practiced by the first 3 parameters out of the 6 or out of the 10, like generosity, discipline, patience. And there we are talking about patience. And Shantideva is doing that in the 6th chapter of the Bodhicaryavatara. And maybe roughly we can understand there are like 3 main points in this chapter number 6. The first is removing anger. So we contemplate on the faults and results and shortcomings of hatred or anger, And then we understand also the virtue of patience. That are the first 10 verses. And then verse 11 to 111 is on cultivating patience. And there we need to be patient if we get things that we don't want, or if we don't get things that we want. Because these two situations normally makes us frustrated or angry. So here, patience is the practice. So that is that second big topic of the 6th chapter is called cultivating patience, and that is from verse 11 to 111. Very easy to memorize. And we are nearly at the end there. So we are in verse 108 today, and so that we will easily finish with 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 verses. And then the third big topic of this chapter is respecting sentient beings. And that is also what we will look into today, and then also complete that. Hopefully it's verse 112 to 134. And it's based on a reoccurring theme that Shantideva is mentioning, that sentient beings are indeed super necessary for us to attain Buddhahood and for us to develop, or cultivate bodhicitta. And they're super important for us, to get liberated and be free of suffering ourselves. So therefore we are asked to not look down on sentient beings, but to really appreciate them and dedicate all our practices to them. So that is coming up today. So let's start. As I said, today we are still in this second big section of the 6th chapter, which is like cultivating patience. And then especially now, if we don't get what we want, then we need the patience. And in this section, we have to cover verses 108 to 111, and I'm showing them. And then I'm just reading them, and then then I'm trying to comment a little bit on them, and then let's discuss. And also in 107, we still see Shantideva's idea, I should be happy to have an enemy, for he or she assists me in my conduct of awakening. That's what I meant, like, yes, sentient beings, especially enemies, like people who challenge us, who don't do what we want, who poke us, they are super important because they can really trigger our mental development. So 108, and because I'm able to practice patience with him, the enemy, he is worthy of being given the very first fruits of my patience, for in this way he is the cause of it. 109, but why should my enemy be venerated? He has no intention for me to practice patience. Then why venerate the sacred Dharma? It too has no intention, but is a fit cause for practice. 110, but surely my enemy is not to be venerated, for he intends to cause me harm. But how could patience be practiced if, like doctors, people always strove to do me good? Good doctors. 111, thus, since patient acceptance is produced in dependence upon one with a very hateful mind, that person should be worthy of veneration, just like the sacred Dharma, because he is a cause of patience. Okay, so I will try to summarize the commentaries on that, and then we can discuss. So in verse 108, Shantideva is basically saying that it is thanks to the enemies that we practice patience, and thanks to patience, we gain all many great qualities on the path. and therefore the enemy or the difficult person is actually very helpful for us. And therefore we dedicate all the fruits, the results of our patience, like merit or happiness or mental peace, we should dedicate that to the enemies because they made it possible. And then in the next verses, there are a couple of doubts, that our egoistic mind might have, in regards to that what Shantideva just said, So the first doubt is, why are we venerating the enemy or dedicating to the enemy? Because the enemy didn't have any good intention, that the enemy wanted to harm us. And then to dispel that doubt, Shantideva is then comparing that to the Dharma, that the Dharma has also no conscious intention to really help us, but nevertheless, like the enemy, it is the cause for our enlightenment, or maybe not cause, since always Buddha nature is the one and only cause, but it's a very, very conducive condition. So like Dharma texts, or statues or stupas or prayer wheels, there are they don't have an intention either, to help us, but as the enemies, these items are also successful in helping us. So therefore, it's not so much, Shantideva is saying, it's not so much about the intention that the enemy has or doesn't have, or the Dharma text doesn't have, or the stupa doesn't have, but it's about the effect that these have. The enemy can have that good effect on our spiritual path, and a stupa and a Dharma practice also. And then the next argument, which I think is very valid, is then saying that, or the next doubt is, but the enemies, they actually have a bad intention. They want to hurt us, But the Dharma or the stupa, they don't have that negative motivation. So therefore, of course, we should venerate the stupa or the statues, but not the enemies. And then Shantideva is giving this example with the doctor, saying that, if everybody would be like this great doctor, who's always doing something with a great compassion, even if it's painful what the doctor is doing, like vaccination or operation, still the doctor, let's say in an ideal world, the doctor is having a good heart, a good compassion, good motivation, and therefore it's, even if he is creating pain, we will be patient easily, because we know the doctor means well. So therefore, if somebody means well, that is not really helpful for us to develop patience. And therefore, the enemy is really precious, and that was also said in many previous verses, and in this section, it is again emphasized that the enemy is precious, because in this case he has a bad intention. So that is actually rare, and that is what is necessary for us to practice patience. And therefore, then in 111, Shantideva is then saying, it's really because of this bad intention or ill will of the enemies that we can practice patience, and therefore that person is really an object of veneration, because patience is because that person, that enemy, is like a Dharma protector, because he or she helps us to develop the strength of patience, and therefore generally our anger or hate is getting much smaller and weaker, and therefore we will not have to experience the negative and results of hatred. So therefore, that is here the concluding verse then on cultivating the concluding idea, and it is about cultivating patience, is that yes, therefore the enemy is worthy of veneration, because just like the Buddhas, they are really helping us on the path. And this, of course, should not be taken out of the context, but it's the context of mind training, and we are not venerating evil stuff, or negative actions, but we are doing that with this perspective, that it helps us to develop positive qualities and then progress on the path. And that is only if we experience these negativities of outer enemies. But that should, of course, not be any justification that we should be that enemy to everyone, and then even ask for veneration, we, of course, should not be evil to others and not be their patient tester, but we should be very supportive and positive and so on. So that would conclude this part on cultivating patience, which was like the main part of chapter 6, 11 to 111. Do you want to discuss or comment or ask or anything on these verses? While I drink from my super big cup. Okay, if not, then not. It's fine. It's not super complicated, and it's not really something new. I mean, it's new for our habits, of course, but it's Shantideva has talked about similar ideas before. And that leads now to the next big section, the last section of chapter 6, and this is called Respect for Sentient Beings. And since we are covering the whole thing today, no matter how long it takes, maybe we can look, I show you this. This is the outline of what is coming up. So we are in the third part of chapter 6, and then this third part, maybe we can write it before, respecting sentient beings, has again 3 subheadings. So first we revere sentient beings, appreciate them, and consider them as a field of merit, because thanks to them we accumulate merit, similar to what we have just discussed. Then second, we appreciate sentient beings, and we are rejoicing in the greatness of Buddha and Buddha's qualities and activities. And then we develop thirdly respect for sentient beings, because we are Shantideva is inviting us to contemplate a little bit on karma and how sentient beings will suffer from negative karma that they have accumulated. Maybe I just put them in the chat. And and yes, thank you, Danielle, with the idea. Yes, I can provide a list of recommended commentaries that we can find then in the email. Maybe that will be sent out for the next session. And really, it's nice if we all have different commentaries. That is always enriching and not contradicting. And if it's contradicting, that will be interesting also. Okay. So let's start with the first thing here. Reverencing beings, considering them as the field of merit. 112 to 118. So I will show these root verses, then explain them, and maybe then we can have a discussion. I really think the discussion is the most important thing, what we can do here, actually, because you can read books or watch YouTube videos, but discussing is like the nice thing of a live event. But for that, let's lay the ground of the next verses. 112. Therefore, the Mighty One, the Buddha, has said that the field of sentient beings is similar to a Buddha field. For many who have pleased them have thereby reached perfection. A Buddha's qualities are gained from the sentient beings and the conquerors, Buddhas alike. So why do I not respect them in the same way as I respect the conquerors or Buddhas? Of course, they are not similar in the quality of their intentions, but only in the fruits that they produce. That's very similar to what we just discussed. So it is in this respect that they have excellent qualities and are therefore said to be equal. Whatever merit comes from venerating one with a loving mind is due to the eminence of sentient beings. And in the same way, the merit of having faith in Buddha is due to the eminence of Buddha. Therefore, they are asserted to be equal in the share they have in establishing Buddha qualities. It's also very similar to what we talked about. But none of them are equal in good qualities with the Buddhas who are boundless oceans of excellence. Even if the three realms were offered, it would be insufficient in paying veneration to those few beings in whom a mere share of the good qualities of the unique assemblage of excellence appears. Yeah, I will comment on that, of course. Thus, since sentient beings have a share in giving rise to supreme Buddha qualities, surely it is correct to venerate them as they are similar in merely this respect. Yeah, I think that sums it up already. Verse 118. But let's go into some details. So, I'll unshare that. And that was 112, right? So, so here, yeah, there are a couple of epithets, nicknames of Buddha. You know, the Mighty One or the Conqueror. The Mighty One, yeah, because he or she has all the Buddha qualities and is the wisdom, you know, and that is performing the Buddha activities. So he or she is very capable to help others. That's why the Mighty One. And then later comes the Conqueror, which is because he or she has conquered all afflictions, all obscurations. And so Buddha, the Mighty One, has said that, and that comes from the Dharma Sangiti Sutra, that the sentient beings, are very important, or a very important field of merit for us to attain Buddhahood. They're like a very fertile ground, basically, you know, so that that Buddhahood can grow. And it is through respecting and being compassionate with sentient beings that we achieve Buddhahood. It is through the practice of the 6 parameters in regards to sentient beings that we attain Buddhahood. And in particular now, it is through the enemies that we can practice the patience parameter and therefore overcome hatred. So therefore, what I mentioned earlier, the path of accumulating merit and wisdom is only possible because of the sentient beings. Because of them, we can practice merit and wisdom and then attain these 2 kayas, which is then the result of Buddhahood. So therefore, yes, we are appreciating them and venerating them. And then in 113, it says, that all the Buddha qualities, you know, we talk about 4 fearlessnesses or 10 strengths or 18 very unique qualities and many other, I mean, that is all like a essentialization there, of course, limitless qualities. And we can study that in the Abhisamaya Alamkara by Maitreya in chapter 8, if you want. So all these Buddha qualities, we can reveal them or manifest them because we practice compassion and so on in regards to sentient beings. Of course, also we have, let's say, devotion to the Buddha, and we offer to the Buddhas and teachers, and by that we accumulate merit. But then also at the same time we serve the sentient beings, and by that also accumulate merit. And therefore, yeah, there's no reason why we don't perceive the sentient beings as being of equal importance as the Buddhas for our paths. Love, compassion, the paramitas, the abandonment of negative actions, everything is always like dependent on sentient beings. Of course, they don't teach us like in a very maybe not like in that constructive and positive and enlightening way like the Buddhas and teachers, but still they are in our practice to accumulate merit and wisdom and to gain Buddhahood. They are equally important as the Buddhas, and that is really a big point that Shantideva is making here. And of course, then in 114, it comes back to the intention thing that we earlier already had, which is that the sentient beings, of course, don't have that compassion as a Buddha. And of course, they are ignorant and they have less qualities, but nevertheless, they help us to obtain the same result. And from that result perspective, they are same as Buddhas. But of course, from the perspective of the qualities they have, they're like on the, that qualities that they can manifest, then they are very different from the Buddhas. And then, of course, on the absolute level, on the level of the Buddha nature, then they are again same as Buddhas, But on the relative level at the moment, yes, for me on the path, there's a difference if I'm with a Buddha or if I'm with a sentient being. And that is the level that Shantideva is talking about. A Buddha has manifested all the qualities and sentient beings have manifested all the ignorance, sort of, and so actually from Buddha nature teachings point of view, the sentient beings are the manifested ignorance. It's that way around. Nevertheless, so like they are same on the level of Buddha nature. They are same in the ability to help us on the path. They are only different in terms of their manifested qualities, which is of course a big difference. But these are the points that Shantideva is making here in 114 and 115. And therefore, especially in 115, it is talking about sentient beings who really meditate on loving kindness, who are really compassionate bodhisattvas. Then if we do positive actions towards them, that is also very powerful already, even if they are not really great bodhisattvas, but if they have that great compassionate meditation, and then if they are in that state and we do something good to them, that is already very, very, very cultivates a lot of good merit for us, which is important on the path. And it's very similar to when we do good things to the Buddhas, or if we are rejoicing in the activities of the Buddhas or of the Arhats also. And so therefore 116 is again similar. So therefore sentient beings and Buddhas are seen to be equal in helping us to attain the Buddha qualities. But again, on the level of what qualities they themselves manifested, there's a difference between sentient beings and Buddhas. And 117, then that is basically 117 is basically a praise to the greatness of Buddha's qualities. That even if like one person has just a teeny tiny fraction of these qualities, and we offer them offered that person all the treasuries of the three realms, that offering would not be appropriate. It would be still too little, because even a tiny fraction of the Buddha qualities is amazing. So the point is, yes, even though sentient beings and Buddhas are similarly helpful for us on the path, yeah, please don't forget that the Buddhas, of course, have amazing qualities. And then 118 was the conclusion. It says here that, yeah, the same thing, you know, the Buddhas and sentient beings are equally helping us to gain the Buddha qualities. Therefore, they both deserve our respect, and they're both very favorable or conducive circumstances for us to practice, yeah, the Mahayana, or in this chapter, to practice patience. So that was the end of this monologue. And now we can discuss, if you like. Danielle, raised your hand.
Good morning. Not so much a question, but on the previous bit, talking about intention, it struck me that we are always called on to be so punctilious about our own intention, to be very, very careful of our own intention, almost being more important than what happens outside. And then this thing is it's the complete inverse. It doesn't matter what their intention is. They're your vehicle for practice. Yeah. And that really was striking me, that difference, that inversion there.
Yeah, because we're not talking about what karma they create, but we're talking about us who want the mind trainees to how we can use sort of even their negativities. Yeah. But for them, of course, it's a pity if they are our bad enemies, you know, who do negative things. Then for them, the general teachings are, of course, totally correct. You know, the motivation is, maybe they have a negative motivation like hatred or jealousy, and then yes, they will suffer from that. But it's also like that. If you, for example, if you give me $1 with a super good intention, or if you give me like $1 million with a bad intention, I personally would like the second option. You know? I don't care about your karma. I have the million, you know? So that is the idea. But for you, it would be better, like for your karmic thing, it would be better if you had give me with a good intention $1. But of course, I like the million. Yeah, so therefore, yeah, it's different to the usual karma teachings, because it's just a different approach to it. Yeah. Emilia.
Hi, Arne.
Hi.
And can't we also apply the same kind of thinking in relation to situations? Of course, the situations, there are people behind them, but like situations that are really challenging, and one can be really angry and upset with what's happening, and then to see the situations as helping to practice.
Yeah, totally.
Patience. when I get around to actually, well, it's helping me, rather than being stuck in what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. I remember in the beginning of chapter 6, Shantideva was saying, he seems to think that it's easier for us to do that with inanimate objects, like a situation or things, you know. but it is more difficult to be patient with animate beings, like sentient beings. And I think the example is, Emilia, if you like intentionally beat my head, you know, then I'm more angry than if I accidentally bump my head at the door, you know. So then with the door, you know, it's inanimate, and then for Shantideva, that seems to be then easier to not be angry. But it's more likely that I'm being angry with you, Emilia, if you like, if I see intentionally that you kick me. But nevertheless, yes, of course. It doesn't matter for our patience training, or also for our anger or arising of anger. It doesn't matter actually if it's so much if it's sentient beings or situations. And yeah, I know myself, you know, I get angry or frustrated with many situations or things that are happening. And as you said, of course, there are sentient beings behind that, but not really enemies. But the situation I perceive as an enemy, and then yes, all the teachings I can apply to that too. You know, I can understand that this situation is like in the today's verses is of course helping me to develop patience and have a peaceful mind, and it will strengthen my mind, and then I can apply that strengthened and peaceful and patient mind to the next situations and next sentient beings. And so therefore it really has a sustaining effect, and it will help me on the path. And we can also apply what was said earlier in the 6th chapter, that Shantideva was saying that if you apply it to a situation, you know, like a situation is of course not one thing, but it's a collection of many factors coming together, and each factor again is thanks to 1,000 other factors, you know, so it's like a multitude of causes and conditions coming together, and therefore it is just illusory, you know. That was one important verse for Shantideva, and therefore it can even help us to have that wisdom, you know, like seeing things as illusory. That could also help us then to deal with difficult situations. Yeah.
But then it's coming from looking from the emptiness, but could also the wisdom there be on understanding that if I'm annoyed with some circumstance or person, it actually has to do with my ego, yes, my self-centered nature, all reflects back to me.
Yes, that definitely.
Would that be the wisdom part there?
Yes. I was really just quoting like one earlier verses, but the other verses are, I think, equally possible to apply to difficult situations. And yes, it's also good to check, why am I getting angry? Why getting frustrated? Why did I have so different expectations, or why did I cling to? Why so desperately I wanted something else to happen? And yeah, it always burns down to our egoistic agendas or perceptions or hopes and fears. Yeah. Thanks. And by that, if we follow a teacher's saying, he said like the best teacher is the teacher who points out our hidden faults, you know. So if even a situation is helping to see, you know, how egoistic I am, you know, and how strong I attach to expectations, that is a teacher, you know. It's a manifestation of the guru, you know, in Vajrayana. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, Doc. Then, if you look in the chat, we come to the next subsection of the 3rd section of the 6th chapter. Reverencing beings with a wish to rejoice the Buddhas. So I will read the verses 119 to 127. Furthermore, what way is there to repay the Buddhas who grant immeasurable benefits? Oh, I'm not sharing it. So sorry. Entschuldigen Sie bitte. Furthermore, what way is there to repay the Buddhas who grant immeasurable benefits and who befriend the world without pretension other than by pleasing sentient beings? I think for the upcoming verses, it's nice to have in the background of your mind, like Buddhas perceive sentient beings as their children, you know? So basically, if we if we are not nice to their kids, the mothers don't like it, right? So that is sort of the idea. But of course, a Buddha is not that dualistic, you know, but that is a general idea. Therefore, since benefiting these beings will repay those who give their bodies and enter the deepest hell for their sake, I shall behave impeccably in all that I do, even if they cause me a great deal of harm. When for their sake, those who are my lords, the Buddhas, have no regard even for their own bodies, then why am I the fool so full of self-importance? Why do I not act like a servant towards them, the sentient beings? Because of their happiness, the conquerors are delighted. But if they are harmed, they are displeased. No, so because the happiness of sentient beings, the Buddhas are happy, but if I harm the sentient beings, the Buddhas are displeased. Hence, by pleasing them, the sentient beings, I shall delight the Buddhas. And by harming them, the sentient beings, I shall hurt the Buddhas. Just as desirable sense objects would give my mind no pleasure if my body was ablaze with fire, likewise, when living creatures are in pain, there is no way for the compassionate ones, the Buddhas, to be pleased. So if sentient beings are suffering, the Buddhas can't be happy at that moment. Therefore, as I have caused harm to living beings, today I openly declare all my unwholesome acts that have brought displeasure to the compassionate ones. Please bear with me, O lords, for this displeasure I have caused you. From now on, in order to delight the Tathagatas, another nickname for the Buddhas, I shall serve the universe and definitely cease to cause harm. Although many beings may kick and stamp upon the head, even at the risk of dying, may I delight the protectors of the world by not retaliating. There is no doubt that those with a nature of compassion regard all these beings to be the same as themselves. Furthermore, those who see this Buddha nature as the nature of sentient beings see the Buddhas themselves. Why then do I not respect sentient beings? Pleasing living beings delights the Tathagatas and perfectly accomplishes my own purpose as well. In addition, it dissipates the pain and misery of the universe. Therefore, I should always practice it. Yeah, that is again, I think, a nice conclusion here. Pleasing or benefiting sentient beings makes the Buddhas happy and it also helps my own spiritual path. And it also helps to remove the pain and suffering of the world. And therefore, yes, let's practice that. So then some footnotes on that. So here the whole idea is giving another reason, you know, like, yes, respecting sentient beings, venerating them or being compassionate with them, making them happy. That actually makes the Buddhas happy because they're like their mothers, let's say. That is, of course, a very dualistic notion because the Buddhas, of course, from our point of view, they care about sentient beings, but they themselves, they cannot suffer, even if we hurt their children, the sentient beings. They will not suffer and they will not be unhappy, but their mind state is unshakable, of course, and they will love the sentient beings equally as us, even if we harm the sentient beings. So therefore, that is not that idea, I think, is very helpful as a pedagogical tool, but and for that it is perfect, I think, but we cannot put it then in another context of trying to understand what are the three kayas, or what is the state of Buddhahood? What does enlightenment mean? You know, then that would be a little bit contradicting. That's what I mean. So we could, so maybe we could even retranslate this a little bit. The Dalai Lama once said he would just replace Buddha here with God, but I guess that was in a very Christian context. But maybe we can understand it like, instead of saying we are pleasing the Buddhas or the Buddhas become happy, we can maybe talk about that this is in harmony with the teachings of the Buddha. Or we can also understand it maybe that we come closer to our own Buddha nature. You know, when it's written here, Buddhas become happy or whatever, then or are pleased, that means like we are getting closer to our own Buddha nature. And if it's written Buddhas are unhappy or hurt, like in pain, then that means we are distancing us from our own Buddha nature. So we could read it also through those glasses, you know. But the idea is, of course, that we understand, that the Buddhas became Buddhas because of the practice of the 6 paramitas, and that they did so in order to help beings and care for beings better and benefit them. So therefore, there's a strong bond between Buddhas and sentient beings, and so the Buddhas perceive themselves as, I don't know, the protectors maybe of sentient beings, and we are also benefiting from the Buddhas, and therefore we want to repay their kindness and what they did for sentient beings. We understand that that the Buddhas care of sentient beings like their own children, and then in the next verse 120, Shantideva is pointing out that the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas are even like ready to suffer a lot, like jump into the deepest hells, you know, for the sake of sentient beings. So they are ready to sacrifice a lot for other sentient beings, and therefore, maybe we should try to learn to do the same thing, you know. And if we want to repay the kindness that the Buddhas and the teachers are manifesting for us, you know, then to repay the kindness is maybe to really have that respectful perception of sentient beings and take care of them as well, and be like assistants of the Buddha, you know, to assist Buddha in Buddha's activities, you know, to help others. That is continued then in 121, where Bodhisattvas or Buddhas also like sacrifice body parts or their whole life for the benefit of others. And then if they do it, why are we not doing it? Why are we so full of self-importance? Why are we so selfish? And why don't we follow in their footsteps? Why are we not becoming, as I said, an assistant or servant? No, assistant to the Buddha and a servant for the sentient beings. That should be our aim, and that is the Bodhisattva path, of course. And then, Marina, we are coming soon to 127, then I will read your thing. And then 122, as I said, that is a little bit like how Shantideva is dualistically putting it here. If the Buddhas are happy if the sentient beings are treated well, and that the Buddhas are suffering if the sentient beings are mistreated. And therefore, if we want to make the Buddhas happy, and I guess that is definitely what we dualistically want, then we please the sentient beings. We should benefit them, and we should not harm them, because that would harm the Buddhas. You know, if we you go to a playground, and we start harming the kids, the parents will be harmed, they will be unhappy. So that is the idea here. And then 123. That is funny. That so the example is if my body is on fire, basically, and it's burnt, then it's so much pain, and then it is feel like if there's real that the flames blazing, then this is just not the suffering is just not forgotten, if somebody gives me a candy, sort of. That is the idea here in 123. Or if somebody gives me a little bit money or dances for me or sings for me, that small happiness is not able to make me forget the suffering that I have standing in the middle of fire. And that example is used here to say that so if I'm negative and bad to sentient beings, so that is like the fire thing here for the Buddhas, and then even if I do some small offerings or small prayers to the Buddhas, that small positive thing will not sort of outshine the negativities that I do towards the sentient beings. And that is also interesting. If we read Words of a Perfect Teacher, the Pato Rinpoche in the compassion section, actually, in the compassion chapter, he's like talking over a couple of pages. He's talking about why we should not use meat offering, in pujas or practices, because that is exactly that what Shantideva here is describing. I think that's why it comes to my mind. So we actually, we make meat offerings, like there's a killing involved. So we are making sentient beings suffer, and therefore, let's say dualistically, the Buddhas are suffering, like standing in the middle of fire, that much suffering they experience because we are killing a sentient being to practice the puja. And then the puja, this is a small positive thing, where we pray to the Buddha or the deity, that is then, that is not so convincing to the Buddhas, and they will not forget that we killed sentient beings on the way. And I think Pato Rinpoche was using that example, like if you do that, in a puja, you offer meat to the deities, it's like killing a child and offer the flesh of this child to her mother to eat it, And if you do like that, the mother will not join the meal, And so that is the idea in the pujas, if we do that, offering meat, then the deities will not come. That's what Pato Rinpoche is saying. And I think it fits well here. But yeah, I'm happy to discuss after a few verses. Then 124. So we basically confess and regret that we have harmed sentient beings, and that we openly declare now. And we understand that this has sort of saddened the Buddhas. Yeah, we know it's not really the case, but let's play along. And this now we confess, and and we can practice the 4 powers, from Vajrasattva, but we also know in Vajrasattva practice, which ends in like, yes, determination that we will never do it again. That pledge is important, that we don't harm sentient beings again. But the opposite, like in 125, in order to make the Buddhas happy. So we should, serve all sentient beings in the world, and we should not harm them anymore. And for that, of course, we need to tame our egoistic mind, our negative emotions, because they are always the engine or that is making us harm others. And then in the end of 125, Shantideva is sort of saying, that we should do no matter what, there should not be an if, that I'm only helping if, but even if they treat us badly, they're kicking us, are negative to us, or even if we are nearly dying from their actions, we could try to follow Buddha's footsteps and not taking revenge, not being angry. Maybe Akshobhya, we can read about Akshobhya, how he was determined never to be angry again, even if those things are happening. So that could be inspiring. And then 126, Shantideva is saying that, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they have no doubt, or they have total certainty, because of their non-dual wisdom, that sentient beings are not different to the Buddhas, to themselves. From the nature point of view, we know that Buddha nature, it's totally, we are all totally equal, and the Buddhas and their Bodhisattva journey, they have familiarized themselves with that idea, like when we first, there are different steps, when we first generate bodhicitta, we see, we want other beings to be happy. And then the first step is we see, let's say, older beings like our parents, and then we develop love to them. Or if they're of the same age as us, we see them as our siblings, the brothers and sisters we love so much, and then our love comes more naturally to them. And then if they're younger than us, we see them as children. So that is the starting point of our bodhicitta cultivation. And then when we enter the first path, path of accumulation and preparation, where we are still ordinary beings, we try to practice what is coming up in chapter 8, where we equalize and exchange ourselves with others. And then we more and more have this equanimous mind, where we see the equality of self and others. We don't think that we are more important than them. And that is, of course, on a conceptual level, on this level. But then if we enter then the first bhumi, or the path of seeing, the third path, then that becomes a direct realization, where we really directly see that there's no difference between others and ourselves. And that is then cultivated further on the bhumis, or on the path of meditation until Buddhahood, where we then have the perfect realization of that non-dual wisdom, where we are just beyond any subject-object perception, and then from Buddha's point of view, there is no distinction anymore between Buddhas and sentient beings, or samsara and nirvana, and so on. And so that is the perfect equality, that what they see, that is a perfect equanimity that they have developed. But of course, on the relative level, there is a difference, and that was mentioned earlier, that of course on a relative level, sentient beings and Buddhas are different. But here then is more the point that that from Buddha's point of view, from the real wisdom point of view, there is no difference between Buddhas and sentient beings. So why do we then still familiarize ourselves with having so much differences between ourselves and others, or sentient beings and Buddhas? We should try to, already familiarize ourselves with that wisdom of a Buddha who doesn't make that difference. Okay, and then 127, and there was a question to it: how can we respect and make happy beings that may only be happy at a certain time with negative things, like someone who likes to drink alcohol or gossip? Oh yeah, that's interesting. So I'm coming to that. So 127 is the conclusion. Therefore we want to be nice and friendly and compassionate and helpful to sentient beings, because first it delights the Buddhas, so it pleases the Buddhas, or it brings us closer to Buddhahood, and second, and perfectly accomplishes my own purpose as well. So we accumulate the two accumulations, and this is good for now and for the future. And thirdly, the next benefit of being compassionate with sentient beings is that it dispels the pain and misery of the universe. So if we are compassionate and loving with others, then we make them happy, we remove their problems, like temporarily, but also like hopefully sustainably, ultimately, and then there's much less suffering in the world. And therefore, Shantideva's commitment or pledge here is to really practice that with diligence, which is then will be the next chapter. So I think you can see Marina's question. How can we apply wisdom to verse 127? How can we respect and make sentient beings happy? Even if they're only happy at a certain time, sometimes only happy at a certain time with negative things, like someone who likes to drink alcohol or gossip. I think you mentioned the key point is wisdom. Like if we talk about generosity, then we have to be wise, what we give, and so we need the wisdom to check, who is the receiver of the gift, and what is the gift, and what is our motivation, and what is the situation at the moment. And only then, if we really check that properly, then we should choose something that is really benefiting the other person, ideally then for a long time. And if we talk about generosity, then it is, of course, not only about material things that we give, but then also fearlessness we give, or we are listening to others, or we even give dharma. So there are these different types of generosity. But when we talk about material things, what you are mentioning, like they are happy when they are gossiping or drinking alcohol, then a bodhisattva has to be skillful, like how to relate with those beings, and because we don't want to enforce these tendencies in them. That would be like one extreme. And the other extreme could be that we are totally alienating ourselves from them, and then we cannot benefit them either. So therefore the middle way could be actually, that is said sometimes, that we should gossip a little bit with them, and make them trust us, and we are one of them, we become relatable. But then little by little, in a non-dogmatic way, maybe we can then guide them out of the gossiping habit. Same with alcohol, you know. It would be maybe wrong if we just reinforce them to drink a lot and make them drink more, but it would maybe be too alienating if we don't drink at all. But if we drink a little bit, you know, that is what Ayadeva is, saying. You know, like we should drink, we should behave like them. You know, we should speak the language like them. You should even think like them. You know, so that we can really feel them and understand them, and they can relate to us. But then we should, but that is only to then lead them out of whatever negativity. And Danielle, you wrote to me net zero. What was that referring to?
Like in the same way that the niceness of offering killed meat does not overcome the fault of the killing that made the meat. I'm sorry, I'm just being nerdy about climate negotiations, but it's along those lines.
And net zero is a specific term? Or?
Yeah, it's a strategy. I'm not going to distract with that. Sorry.
Oh, but that's interesting. I will Google that later then. I'll write that down. And I don't know if that is going into that direction, but the idea is always, do the thing that is more beneficial for as many people that are involved. And with the meat offering, I also know many teachers who say we are doing our pujas not perfect anyway, you know. So why are we so obsessed with then perfectly using meat, how it's written? Emilia.
These verses that talk about not harming because we don't want to upset Buddhas, and I don't know. To me, it came to mind on devotion, the amount of devotion, because if one has a really strong devotion towards Buddha, the three jewels, maybe they would, because of the devotion, they would automatically not wanting to harm, but as it's really strongly associated with the amount of devotion one has. Because it could be because of fear of, retaliation from the Buddhas, which I don't think would make sense at all. But the devotional and the trusting that we shouldn't harm other sentient beings. And then through that, just doing as a kind of becoming natural. Well, I'm speculating that it's not that that applies to me, but speculating if this is related to devotion.
Yeah, those I think verses. So. Like Shantideva is, since devotion is of course in all the yanas, but it's very emphasized in Vajrayana. But he's more using the gratefulness that we have towards the Buddhas. So in my English translation, that is used, or kindness, that we want to repay the kindness. But that is the main. And yes, of course, we can also use devotion. That's the main thing, that we think that we really appreciate the Buddhas so much and don't want to mess with that, and disturb them in any way. But assist them in their Buddha activities. And not harm the ones whom they love, Which also applies to ourselves. They love us too, and so let's not harm ourselves, like by being like overly strict or with ourselves. Bye bye, Danielle. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Anything? So then we have a few more verses until the end. What did I put in the chat? 128 to 134. Practicing respect for beings, thinking of the consequences of the good and evil done to them. So now it's a little bit on karma. Yeah, there's, I think the first two verses are a little bit, need a little bit explanation, but I think it's better to read them in one go than it makes sense. So 128. For example, should some of the king's men, oh, I shared, sorry. Bye, Katja, so good that you have been here. So now 128. Sorry, here. Until the end of chapter 6. For example, should some of the king's men cause harm to many people, far-sighted men would not return the harm, even if they were able to do so. For they see that these men are not alone, but are supported by the might of the king. Likewise, I should not underestimate weak beings who cause me a little harm, for they are supported by the guardians of hell and by all the compassionate ones. So behaving like the subjects of that fiery king, I should please all sentient beings. Even if such a king were to become angry, could he cause the pain of hell, which is the fruit I would have to experience by displeasing sentient beings? ? And even if such king were to be kind, he could not possibly grant me Buddhahood, which is the fruit I would obtain by pleasing sentient beings. Why do I not see that my future attainment of Buddhahood, as well as glory, renown, and happiness in this very life, all come from pleasing sentient beings? While in cyclic existence, patience causes beauty, health, and renown, because of these I shall live for a very long life and win the extensive pleasures of the universal chakra kings. So, what is happening here with the king and the minister? So, the idea is, let's say there's a minister, and yeah, we know a minister is not like the highest authority, but in this example, the king is the highest authority. But the minister is representing the king and everything related to the king. So if that is a very bad minister, very harsh, very bossy, very negative, and maybe even torturing people, you know, with punishments or unfair rules or high taxes. Then we have two options, you know, if we are short-sighted, you know, we just complain directly to the ministers and getting angry with them. But if we are far-sighted, we don't take revenge, even if we would be able to if we would be stronger than them, you know. Even if we could harm that minister or even kill the minister, you know, or get rid of him in other ways, and so let's be far-sighted. That is meant here with wisdom. So we understand that this minister is only a representative of the king, and there are so much allies are behind the minister, and sorry, and so that example here is given that the sentient beings, you know, that we meet and that are maybe negative to us or create trouble for us. that they are not sort of that they are like the ministers, and they are not sort of alone, but that behind them there are the Bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, and so that it has much bigger consequences. If we kill the minister, or if we beat the minister, then yeah, we will suffer a lot of consequences by this king afterwards. And likewise here, it sounds a little bit theistic, but yeah, if we mistreat sentient beings, yeah, the Buddhas will be upset, or it has that consequence. And that is then further explained in 130, so that the sentient beings are not alone, but that they have allies or accomplices, which are the guardians of hell, is written here. So that means if we are angrily reacting towards the sentient beings, then yeah, we will fall into hell, let's say. And so therefore these guardians of hell are the supporters of sentient beings, or the Buddhas are also supporters of sentient beings, because they are like disappointed or saddened by our negativities. And then, yeah, they become maybe more distant to us, but of course we know Buddhas are not like that, but just as a, yeah, as a method to think about it, that is said here. And therefore, the idea here for Bodhisattva is to even be respectful towards sentient beings, even if they are like very mean and negative, like the minister is. And then if we check then about the king and the Buddha, which are here similar in the example, then, or not actually Buddha, but okay, let's just say we're checking the king. How powerful is the king actually? So the king, if he is angry, since the king, he's a he can only punish us in regards to this life. He could kill us, or imprison us, or steal our possessions, and so that is like relatively short and small suffering, because the king cannot put you in the hell realm. So, but when we are negative to sentient beings, that negativity, that can put us into hell realm. So therefore, that negativity is much worse than what the king can ever do to us. So that is the first thing. And then the second point in 132, even if the king would be super kind and good, he could never put us in the state of Buddhahood. Of course, a king has a lot of power, so he can make us rich, put us in a powerful situation, position, promote us, and so on. But that is again only a small and short-lasting fun or happiness. But compared to that, if we are kind and compassionate, respectful to sentient beings, that will have much better result, because that can lead us to Buddhahood. But the king could never bring us to establish us in the state of Buddhahood. But our kindness to sentient beings can do that. So therefore, our reaction towards sentient beings is much more powerful than any king. That is the idea. And I think that sentence is correct, but often it is simplified and it says sentient beings are more powerful than the king. But the meaning is like how we our negative or positive emotions or motivations toward sentient beings, they of course make the difference, not the sentient beings themselves. And then in the last two verses, 133, so Shantideva is saying that all good results, like Buddhahood is the ultimate result, and then glory, renown, and happiness as a temporary result in this life, that all comes from merit and patience practice, being compassionate and kind, respectful, and so on. And and he's asking why we don't understand that, and therefore he's of course urging us to understand that and treat sentient beings nicely and make them happy and practice patience with them. So like in 133, like these the ultimate benefit of this patient practice is explained, that we attain Buddhahood. And then also the relative result is also a little bit shown, like glory, renown, and happiness in this very life. And that is then continued in 134, where it says, that a relative result is, that we are beautiful and healthy and renowned, and that we have a long life, and that we have like so many pleasures, like this Chakravartins, this it's like the highest samsaric result, like with so much precious substances and queens and so on. So that are only like relative results of patience. And some Rinpoches explain like the beauty why patience makes beauty is just, it's very like instantaneous. If you are angry, you look ugly, red and green and blue and everything. But if you are patient, then we are glowing and smiling, and that is more attractive actually. And I don't know, and that is of course a totally different beauty, what is meant here than usually. But I think, we all know very old teachers maybe. I don't know, Garshan Rinpoche, or maybe His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think they are not. Of course, they're not young, but I think they're so attractive to look at, and and that kind of thing is meant. We can never have enough of looking at them. It feels so good, it's so joyful. And then good health as a result of patience is also, I think that is also in Western medicine now. In Asian medicines, it's of course there too. But in Western medicine, also like this anger and short-temperedness is really not good for the immune system. And then, of course, we have a fragile body and we get easily sick, and then we have a shorter life also. And being renowned or famous, I think, is also if we are really like so compassionate and kind and peaceful with others and not angry, then yes, people like us, people speak nicely about us, and if we are benefiting others, that will be talked about, of course. And so there are all these relative results, which are of course not the aim, but still it's a nice feedback, sort of, that, and it keeps us going. And it can also be, of course, a skillful means, like. I think if the teachers look attractive, what I meant, not in the sexual way, but let's say the Dalai Lama, if just his appearance is attracting sentient beings, that's super good, then they listen to him and he can teach them. And so, therefore, it is only a relative result, but it's also, important as a skillful means to connect with beings. And then extensive pleasures of universal chakra kings. It's also, I think that's also very practical. If we have enough money, that's also good. Like if we like Dzogchen Rinpoche said once, if one has too little money, then money becomes too big, in one's mind. We all the time have to think about how to gain money and how get a job, or it's a lot of stress, and money becomes a big item in our mind. And if we have too much money, also money can become a big item. We are afraid to lose it, or we want our second million, and so on. So that also becomes too big. But if we just have enough, that is we need money, of course, nowadays also to travel to teachings and so on, or maybe not travel yet, but maybe donate to the Rinpoches or whatever, and then, but hopefully soon we can travel, and then we need hotels or whatever. So it's good to have some money, and but of course the greatest wealth is contentment, of course. But practically speaking, it's good that we have food, medicine, clothes, whatever we need. Yeah, and that would conclude this chapter 6 after a couple of kalpas of talking about it. Maybe we can still have like a few minutes to discuss if you have any question. Ginny, do you have something?
Yes, I do. Verse 129.
Mm-hmm.
I think I misunderstood that line, first of all. Likewise, I should not underestimate weak beings who cause me a little harm. I mean, my reaction to that was, we should be very afraid of people who are doing us some harm, right? But what does it mean? We should be very afraid of our own minds, really?
Yeah, like in the commentaries, it is actually talking, we should be afraid of the bodhisattvas or Buddhas who are behind the weak beings. So we should not be negative to weak sentient beings. Let's say a mosquito who is annoying us, we should not kill it, because it's not only one single mosquito, but the Buddhas and bodhisattvas are watching, and so we should be, I mean, that sounds really theistic, but let's say it like we are afraid of their judgment, or how they perceive our negative actions, but of course the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are not that judgmental, but still, I if let's say if there's a mosquito and Khyentse Rinpoche in the same room, of course I try to behave and not kill the mosquito, even though he would not be judgmental, but still I want, I don't know.
The guardians of hell, I don't quite understand who they are. Are the guardians of hell preventing us going to hell, or
the other way around
towards hell? Yeah.
So the sentient, let's say there's a sentient being and I'm negative to him or her, then it's not the sentient being, but my negativity, let's say my hatred, that will push me into hell. So that is pushing me into hell, and then the guardians of hell, they will keep me in hell.
Oh, right. Okay.
So they are sort of staying at the gate and don't letting me out, and they're like whatever, boiling the water in which I'm sitting, and So therefore, that is the whole reason here is the whole idea is always the sentient beings, like the mosquito maybe is a good example, is not alone, but so much can happen, with this. Just when I'm negatively to that one seemingly alone being, then suddenly it will connect me with the guardians of hell, because my negativity will push me in the hell. Or also the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will be sad, or disappointed, I don't know, when I'm killing that mosquito.
Because some classes back, I remember we talked quite a few classes back, we talked once about if we're in a really difficult situation that we really don't quite trust ourselves with, that sometimes it's good to move away, to stay away, right? To withdraw. Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. Like the general advice, I think, is always like, whatever teachings you have received, try maybe the highest method first that you got, just staying in Rigpa, and stay in the negative situation. If that doesn't work, then go one level lower, then maybe try to see everything as deities. If that doesn't work, then compassionate Mahayana. And if that doesn't work, then renounce like a Shravakayana and leave the situation,
Because I'm just about to get thrown into a situation that I have been staying away from and becoming quiet, because my mother had an accident this morning. She had a fall.
Oh.
She's broken her hip. She's 99.
Wow.
Bless her. I was talking to her last night. She lives a long way away, but she was fine last night, but she had a fall this morning and she's now in hospital, going to have an operation tomorrow. But my problem is that I don't get on with my sister. I've been avoiding her, but now I obviously have to talk to my sister. So this is so pertinent for me because I have to face it. I can't just, I can't avoid her.
Yeah, for me sometimes, and I heard that from others also, if you do like Tonglen, with her, like alone now, I don't know, that changes already how I perceive this other person. And she's, in your case, then she might be also different then and react differently to you because you change something, how you perceive her.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Without words, but sort of, people notice that and then, they're also a little bit shaken up in their habits. And
no, that's good advice. Thank you.
And also sometimes it just helps. I mean, your situation that, you're both so sorry for your mother, and so that is the focus of your attention, and then suddenly you embrace each other like accidentally, by looking at your mother, like.
Thank you. Good.
Good, thank you. I think maybe we stop. I don't want to take too much time of your lives. And hallelujah, we made it, 6th chapter. The 7th is, I think, very easy and straightforward. Overcoming one big problem, which is laziness. And by that, Shantideva is offering like 6 strengths. And then comes a long chapter on meditation and then a long chapter on wisdom. And complicated, and then the dedication, and which we do now, I think. I hope, Ginny, you're reading the chat. Your mother receives a lot of good wishes and blessings here.
Oh, I'll have a look, thank you. Her name is Sheila. If anybody would like to put her on their prayer list.
And maybe where is she, in which country or city?
In UK, she's in UK. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, then let's do some dedications. By this merit, having attained omniscience and defeated the enemy of wrongdoing, may I free all beings from the ocean of existence, with its tumultuous waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Just as the heroic Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, and as Samantha Bartler likewise did too, just so to follow all of them and train myself, I perfectly dedicate these meritorious actions. May the precious Supreme Bodhisattva arise in those in whom it has not arisen. Having arisen, may it not diminish, but ever expand more and more. This is exactly, how the Bodhicaryavatara is structured. The first 3 chapters are to arise Bodhisattva where it has not arisen. And then chapter 4, 5, 6, and we finish that, is that the Bodhisattva that has arisen, may it not diminish. So now, then we come to the next one, that Bodhisattva will expand and grow more and more and more and more. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may I too remain to elevate the suffering of the world. May I in each and every lifetime carry the weight of Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings. And if I cannot bear that weight, at the very least may I be born with the burden of thinking that the Buddha Dharma could reign. So thank you very much. Thank you for your interest in Shantideva's wisdom, and thank you for bearing with me and my irregular schedule. And yeah, hope to see you soon. And yeah, in the announcement then, I will think about what verses we might cover, and I will give also maybe some ideas of commentaries in case you don't have any. And yeah, then maybe you can prepare a little bit, and then we can high educated discussion. No, but then we have more time to discuss also if we all have a similar basis, if you like. But there's no stress at all. Okay, thank you, and see you soon. Bye-bye. Ah, yeah, and tomorrow, I forgot. Tomorrow we do a Kuntu Sankpo Mandam recitation. Tomorrow is like apparently like a super rare lunar eclipse. And so in 12 and a half hours, 12 hours, 20 minutes, whatever time zone you are in, we do a 2 hours recitation of that. I don't know if Khyentse Rinpoche is joining. I asked him yesterday. He got the message and the invite and the Zoom link. Let's see, but we don't know. I will bring another Sakya master that I adore. It's Dzongsar Rinpoche. He will also recite once. And and then Sydney from Seattle will do the second hour. If you like, there's a nice prayer that we will recite tomorrow in 12 hours, 20 minutes for 2 hours. That's it.
Arne starts at 9, right?
Yes.
Berlin time.
Yes. Yeah, so 12 hours, 20 minutes. But I think if you are still in Sweden, that's the same time, I guess.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, and all the best wishes to everyone, and your mother, Ginny. Sheila. Bye-bye.